Are you one of the many who wake up every single day to hearing and seeing news of murder, hijackings, cash-in transit heists, and general mayhem? Are you one of those who are sick to their stomachs from seeing the photos of families being wiped out on rural farms in the most horrific and gruesome ways? Are you absolutely sick and tired of paying tax every month, knowing full well that most of it, if not all of it, is going to be stolen by thieving government officials? Are you getting tired of having your power go out at the most inopportune times due to corruption and total incompetence at Eskom? Are you fed up of being discriminated against in the workplace simply because you have a white skin, no matter what your skills or competence levels? Have you ever wondered what you can do to either stop all of this chaos in South Africa or just get away from it? Don't you ever wish that you could just wake up one day in another country where you and your people are in control of your own destiny? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone. There are millions of people just like you who have had enough of the rampant crime, corruption, and incompetence. Thousands fall victims to at least one of these evils every single day in South Africa. The level of unemployment amongst the skilled and educated white population is increasing at an alarming rate, while incompetent people are placed in positions way higher than they deserve and get paid exorbitant salaries to boot. Know this: it is not your fault. You have done nothing to deserve this treatment, and anyone who says that you do is a propagandist. There is a lot of talk about legal secession of the Cape from South Africa, and on paper it sounds like a pretty good idea. However, the ANC would certainly not allow it to happen without some kind of conflict. Conflict could lead to bloodshed and loss of life. Basically, he who has the most and biggest guns wins, a scenario we would like to avoid but are willing to explore if all else has been tried and failed. What if I told you that there was a way for you to wake up tomorrow morning as a citizen of another country or another nation of like-minded people, a nation of people of similar goals, a nation where the rule of law still means something, a nation where good values are upheld by all and punished appropriately where not, a nation where your mother tongue is the official language, and a nation who have taken an oath to take care of each other as family? If this sounds appealing to you, allow me to show you that this is all possible for you and for me. It is not only possible, it is already available to us and is absolutely free of charge to all of us who want it. Many of you have heard me mention USAF in previous videos. I would like to take this opportunity to show you that USAF, that is, the United South African Federation, can provide you with all your requirements and still cost you nothing, for now anyway. More on this later. Did you know that the Vatican City has only 1,000 inhabitants and is an independent country? Did you know that Monaco only has 39,000 inhabitants and is an independent country? Did you know that Monaco, although it only has 39,000 inhabitants, it only covers a land mass of some 202 hectares? I would bet that at least 90% of commercial farms in South Africa are much bigger than 202 hectares. So the question arises, if these countries can be declared and receive recognition as independent countries, why could we not, as a minority, receive recognition as and be awarded independence? The answer is not what you might think. There is actually no legal reason why we can't be declared independent. It is literally that simple. So why have we not declared independence already? That is a very good question. The main reason is largely ignorance. People simply don't know that it is possible. Well, I'm making this video today to tell you that it is definitely possible, and in fact USAF are doing it already. Yes, they have started the process already. Although we have not yet declared our little nation independent, we already have a population bigger than the inhabitants of the Vatican, 6 times as big to be exact. I bet you have 1,000 questions, and I'm going to attempt to answer as many of them as possible right now. If you still have questions afterwards, please feel free to post them in the comments section or send me an email. My email address is in the description of this video and most previous videos. Okay, here we go. Are you ready to have your mind opened up to new possibilities? With the internet has come a myriad of new possibilities, one of which is the formation of groups of people from all over the globe, grouping themselves together to form small communities, sometimes not that small. These communities often form bonds based on common interests, common goals, common values and aspirations that transcend borders. These virtual communities occupy no physical land, but nobody can deny their existence. Enter the virtual country or virtual nation. A virtual country is a country that does not occupy any land and has no borders. The inhabitants of this virtual country live within the borders of existing land-based countries. These inhabitants will have to obey the laws of whichever land-based countries they choose to live in and will hold dual citizenship. So how are these virtual countries brought into existence? Firstly, we need to know and understand the definition of what exactly a country is. The dictionary defines a country as follows: a part or division of the people of the earth distinguished from the rest by common descent, language or institutions, a race, a stock. Law professor Idruego defines a nation as an entity with a government that totally controls a stable population in a delimited territory. Not all nations have their own land. Throughout history, there are many examples of peoples in exile or nationalities existing within one or more other countries. Today, we describe a country as a nation-state. The concept of a nation-state took root in the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. It sorted out some of the land issues and opened the doors to religious freedom by separating church and state. Traditionally, governments operating as nation-states provide a protective bubble over their people, giving them means within their borders to live and do business. However, several forces are beginning to complicate and threaten government control over their citizens. There are many ways in which new sovereign nations can come into existence. Most commonly are the following: by dismantling an existing nation. An example of this would be Bangladesh separating from Pakistan in 1971. By dividing a nation in half. Example is Germany after the Second World War. Also, by fusing different nations together into one. Example, Italy in 1860. Last but not least, there is decolonization either through peaceful or violent means. Example, America in the 18th century and Africa in the 20th century. Okay, so a new country is established somewhere. What now? How do they become recognized by the international community? First, you need recognition by the very people living in that country or internally. You also need to get recognition from other countries, people and organizations outside of the country or externally. There's a very important statement made by the Institute of Law in 1936. It states, and I quote, "Recognition of a new nation is a free decision by which one or several nations corroborate the existence on a determined territory of a human society, politically organized, independent of any other nation, capable of complying with international law, and their decision is made public, recognizing the new nation as a member of the international community." This simply means that a number of other nations come to an agreement that they will recognize the new nation as independent, thereby giving it legitimacy. On the 16th of December 1991, the Foreign Affairs Ministers of the European Union issued further standards to which new nations must adhere in order to gain recognition. These standards are: A. Respect all points of the Charter of the UN, Helsinki Summit, Final Act, and Charter of Paris for a New Europe. B. Guarantee rights of minorities and other groups as per the agreements of the CSCE, or the Conference for Security and Cooperation in Europe. C. Respect the unchangeable nature of national borders that can only be changed peacefully through common agreement. And D. Commitment in reaching common agreements on all matters related to state secession and regional controversies. Let's talk about self-determination. President Woodrow Wilson, after the First World War, promoted the concept of self-determination. He made a statement on January the 8th, 1918 that stated, and I quote, "Every peace-loving nation which, like our own, wishes to live its own life, determines its own institutions, be assured of justice and fair dealing by the other peoples of the world as against force and self-aggression. All the peoples of the world are in effect partners in this interest, and for our own part, we see very clearly that unless justice is done to others, it will not be done to us." This was the beginning of the League of Nations, which became the United Nations as we know it today. Although they did not formally recognize self-determination, they did endorse it. Modern international law states, and I quote, "All peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of the right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development." Now let us talk about the forces that influence global change. Technology has advanced to such a level now that communication across borders is so easily accomplished without restriction that governments have lost control of commerce. People are doing business across borders as easily as they do it internally these days. With the advancement of transport systems, the stage is going to be reached soon where anyone will be able to use their own private transport to go anywhere they like. We are very close to people owning autonomous air vehicles that will literally fly you to wherever it is that you would like to go without you even knowing how to fly the vehicle yourself. This alone will make country borders irrelevant. Citizenship will no longer be determined by a geographical territory. As people start to move freely around the globe, a whole new set of laws will be needed by governments to govern over their citizens. A government that controls its people will be funded by income taxes and other individual taxation methods. A government that controls the land will be funded by taxes collected from property taxes and other land-based taxes. Okay, so now we get to our virtual nation or country. History is full of stories of people without a land to call their own. In the year 2000, there were an estimated 22.3 million displaced people who were fleeing their countries due to fighting taking place there. The concept of people without a country is not new, but giving them legitimacy is. Under what circumstances could virtual nations be brought into existence? The United Nations could establish a virtual country to give refugees driven out of their own countries legitimacy. For instance, they could establish a virtual nation to legitimize the refugees fleeing Bosnia. Once this is done, they can give those people temporary citizenship to the virtual country, which will enable them to get passports, bank accounts, etc. People living in another country and wanting to immigrate to that country sometimes have to wait long periods of time to complete the immigration process. A virtual country that literally overlays the existing country can be governed by a different set of laws. Any country could decide to open itself up for enrollment as citizens for many different reasons. Many people will jump at the opportunity to become a citizen of another country when it is just a novelty or simply to gain new freedoms and rights. Large corporations such as Microsoft or Apple could also declare themselves sovereign states apart from the country in which they reside in order to isolate themselves from possible court decisions that could have a bad impact on their finances. It is not quite as simple as this, but it could be done. Possible security issues with this virtual nation idea. Most governments do not like the idea of having other people who are under the jurisdiction of another authority living in their territory. The danger of this is that the country could end up with an enemy army developing right inside their own territory. So there are potentially many stumbling blocks in the path of creating virtual nations. The main thing is that they gain recognition from other existing nations. However, if a governing body were to be set up to oversee the process, there is no reason why it couldn't be done. This is where USAF comes in. They have begun the process by creating a platform for people of similar interests, of similar ethnic background and goals to register and become a citizen of Zuidland. They are already establishing a Zuidland population. As soon as the population of the virtual country becomes large enough, they intend to declare independence. Many of the members of Zuidland own land, and in some cases large tracts of land. There's no reason why one or more of these large tracts of land could be declared a part of Zuidland. This will give the virtual nation a geographical territory which adds to its legitimacy. Although not all portfolios have been filled yet, the creators of Zuidland have already set up a temporary government as well as their own fully functional financial system. At this stage, it is not necessary to join the financial system, but joining as a citizen of Zuidland is 100% free and advisable. Below is an excerpt from the USAF Facebook page where they give reasons why people like myself joined USAF and Zuidland. I'm going to list them for you now. We no longer want to build anything just to have it burned down. We no longer want to be in a non-law abiding society. We no longer want to live in a godless society. We no longer want to fear the corrupt police force. We no longer want to work hard to pay taxes just to be wasted on corruption and state enterprises such as SAA, PRASA, Eskom, etc. We no longer want to see the level of farm murders and other crimes being ignored. We no longer want to have slaved and stressed to build up a company and have to give half of it away through BEE. We no longer want to be afraid to even go out at night. I want to be able to laugh and feel free again. We no longer want to be governed by leaders who sow racial hatred and bulldust everywhere and live the high life at the expense of the citizenry. We no longer want to be made to feel guilty for having been born white, for colonialism and white monopoly capital. We no longer want to worry about when they will be coming to claim my land I paid for. We no longer want to be in a country where there is a race-based hatred. We no longer want to be frustrated daily by people not seeing or understanding what is being done to them by their elected leaders. I no longer want them to be taken for a ride. We no longer want to love or feel part of the beautiful South Africa that once was. We no longer want to see protests and the destruction of property, looting and burning. We no longer want to be unemployed because I am the wrong skin color, having worked so hard to get a university degree. We no longer want to be so stressed when my husband or daughters go out and I won't see them again. We no longer want to worry about our economy and the value of the rand. We no longer want to be second-class citizens in our own country. We no longer want to live in a prison while criminals walk free and have all the rights. We no longer want to be scared to lose our jobs because we are the wrong skin color. We no longer want to see no future for our family. We no longer want to be part of this so-called rainbow nation. It's now a black tornado sucking up everything ever built and destroying it. We no longer want to worry what the future holds for our children and grandchildren when we are dead and gone. We no longer want to be reminded of apartheid and be blamed for what our forefathers did. We no longer want to fear for our family's safety on the road, in the workplace and at school. We no longer want to fear that we will be held at gunpoint while we sleep. We no longer want to be ruled by people who do not have the same morals, ethics, principles, beliefs, and believe in rule of law and the Constitution. We no longer want to live in fear. I want to rediscover the simple, precious joys of life. We no longer want to contribute to this country that gives nothing but consumes all. We no longer want to drape our laundry all over our home instead of outside on the washing line. We no longer want to stay locked up in our homes while garden goes to pot. We no longer want to see children stuck playing inside instead of riding their bikes at a park. We no longer want to be part of a state that has been captured by the greedy. We no longer want to experience reverse apartheid. We no longer want to hate. We no longer want to pay tax to a government that wants to take our paid-for land and assets for no compensation. So if you have been thinking to yourself how you can separate yourself from the civil, economic and social problems this country is facing, please give USAF some consideration and become a citizen of Zuidland. Go to their website and read everything there is under the info tab. There is plenty of information. All of the information I have shared here comes from their website under the info tab. As usual, if you think that you got some value from this video, please like and share it on many other social media platforms as possible. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please do so. Then click on that bell icon to receive notifications every time I upload a new video. Also, if you would like to support my channel to keep the lights burning and food on the table, I have provided a number of ways in which you can support me for both local and international subscribers. If you are an existing USAF and PayUp member, my PayUp account number is in the reference of all the banking details listed. You will find them all in the description of this and all other videos. To those that have made a contribution already, I say a big thank you.